After capturing the Margaretta, Diligent, and Tatamagouch, we knew the British would return to destroy our town. We tried to go back to living a normal life, but everyone was nervous. People looked downriver a lot more, just waiting for the British boats to return for revenge. If we heard a gunshot, we wondered if it was a hunter or a British soldier attacking. That fall, in October of 1775, the same Daniel Merritt of Pleasant River, who had surveyed the lands in Machias, was appointed by the Massachusetts House of Representatives to serve on the committee to examine the reason of justness of the capture of any vessel that is taken into custody. Ships were being captured on a regular basis across the colony, and Merritt's first-hand knowledge of the 3 ships captured in Machias provided a good basis for him to investigate any ships captured between Penobscot River and Machias rivers. We knew the British were quite upset at people of Machias. We knew they wanted to get their ships back. They did not come back into our harbor right away, but they were on the watch for us when we were out on the high seas. We were on the watch for them as well. Machias was about halfway between Boston and Nova Scotia, and the British sailed back and forth on a regular basis. We knew it was just a matter of time before the British returned to Machias Bay. They lost 4 ships here. They would make us pay for that sooner or later. Their ship, the Halifax, had shipwrecked at the mouth of our harbors, and the Margaretta, Diligent, and Tatamagouch had been captured right here in Machias Bay. From Boston to Machias, many people felt it was wiser to provide soldiers and supplies to help the militia from Machias in their plan to capture Halifax, Nova Scotia, than it was to have Benedict Arnold row up the Kennebec to capture Quebec. George Washington wanted to capture Quebec, and plans were made to reach the area by going up the Kennebec River through the province of Maine. In September of 1775, Benedict Arnold and Ethan Allan joined forces again and marched through the province of Maine along the Kennebec River and to Quebec. The trip was twice as long as they anticipated and ended in a dreadful retreat back to Fort Ticonderoga. In October of 1775, the British sent Lieutenant Henry Mowat and a fleet to Falmouth, which is very near our old homesteads in Scarborough. Mowat ordered the people to turn over their muskets or he would destroy their town. The people turned over a few muskets and said they would meet to decide about turning over their remaining muskets. They said they would have an answer by 9 o'clock in the morning. In the meantime, everyone began loading their possessions into wagons to flee to safety. No meeting was ever held to decide about surrendering the remaining muskets. Shortly after 9 in the morning, Mowat ordered his British soldiers to fire cannons on the town. They fired all day. The soldiers then went ashore and finished the job. 130 houses were burned that day. We knew it was just a matter of time before they came after us here in Machias. On July 4th of 1776, the Declaration of Independence was signed by 56 men at Independence Hall in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. It was very clear that Americans wanted their own government, and they were willing to die for the freedom and liberty. The British kept coming back and harassing us. It was like poking a stick into a hornet's nest. They sent another ship of war to Machias Bay in July of 1776. It was just 2 days after the Declaration of Independence had been signed. The name of the ship was the HMS Viper. On that ship, the Brits stole 5 of our fishing vessels who were out minding their own business fishing in the bay. 2 of those ships each had 100,000 pounds of fish on board. We needed those fish for food. Those fish could have been salted, dried, or smoked, and would have fed us through the winter. We could have sold or traded those fish in Boston if we were allowed free trade. The 1776 Battle of Machias lasted a little more than 3 full days. 1 man was shot in the arm. In September of 1776, Fort Foster was built at the narrows of West River near the rim of where East River flowed into the bay. The fort consisted of long earthen berms and a watchtower fort with housing for those on guard. Across the river on the south side, another fortification known as Stillman's Breastwork. Fort O'Brien was built and a small fortification was made upriver at White's Point where Middle River flows into West River. As Fort Foster was being built at the rim, John O'Brien and a few other men retrieved the Margaretta, which they had hidden far upstream on Middle River. The Massachusetts Navy appears to have renamed her the Machias Liberty. John O'Brien sailed westward for Castine, but encountered a ship that he misjudged as a merchant vessel. He tacked his sails and bore down on the vessel. As he neared the other ship, he realized it was a large-sized British man-of-war. His eagerness led to a big mistake. He retreated eastward, but soon realized he could not outrun the British, and he sailed into a cove. His crew abandoned ship and went ashore, where they hid in one of the 4 houses built in the region. The British lowered a smaller vessel and rowed to the head of the cove, where they burned the Machias Liberty down to the waterline. Only the timbers of the hull remained on the mud flats of the cove. During the summer of 1776, a man, John Allan of Cumberland, Nova Scotia, was forced to leave his home and property, which the British burned because he supported the American cause in the Revolution. His wife and children were taken prisoner. John Allan came to Machias and was employed by the colonial government as a colonel of the American troops east of Mount Desert Island. On Christmas Eve of 1776, George Washington wrote a letter to the Passamaquoddy tribe thanking them for being ready to fight with their fellow Americans against the British. In June and July of 1777, the HMS Ambuscade dropped anchor near the rim that is a point of land between where East River and West River join together and flow into the ocean. The armed ship was visible from both villages. The soldiers on board were meant to intimidate the local rebels. Men from long distances up and down the coast came to Machias to enlist in the local forces to defend against the British. One man named Moses Wister hiked over 20 miles from Pleasant River to Machias to enlist in 1777. He owned a small sawmill located at what is now known as Burnt Mill Rips. The HMS Ambuscade left Machias without incident. Colonel John Allan was granted permission from Continental Congress to raise troops. He recruited Indians from Machias to the St. John River. Word leaked to the British authorities that John Allan was planning an attack and that he was storing arms and ammunition in Machias. In 1777, Sir George Collier decided to sail his British fleet to Machias to destroy the magazines of arms and ammunition. Collier had ships named the Rainbow and the Blonde that each carried 44 cannons, the Mermaid with 28 cannons, and the Hope. The Hope had been sent ahead and sent a spy into Machias who learned that a large number of people in Nova Scotia intended to fight for the Americans if an invasion took place. Collier and his 4 ships entered Machias Bay and were prepared to destroy the town if necessary. Word spread upriver to the village. The rumors of large stores of arms and ammunition were not true. The supplies and soldiers had not yet reached Machias. The town was not prepared for the British forces that were capable of destroying the village in a couple of hours. Despite the odds, the people of Machias prepared to make every resistance possible. A log and chain boom was stretched across the West River at the Narrows. It was hoped it would stop the ships from sailing up into the village. Several Indians had paddled birch bark canoes to the village and were prepared to fight if needed. They had come from as far away as the St. John River to the north and the Penobscot River to the southwest. At least 43 Indians joined John Allan when he left for Machias. The Indians were prepared to fight the British and defend Machias. John Allan was born in Scotland. He moved to Nova Scotia. He was educated in Massachusetts, where he learned of patriotism, liberty, and freedom. His father became very upset when he learned of his son's belief in democracy. John Allan was forced to flee Nova Scotia and moved to Machias. He met with George Washington in Philadelphia in 1776. Washington discouraged Allan from trying to seize Halifax and reminded him that the Machias man already met defeat at Fort Cumberland. On January 1, 1777, Continental Congress appointed John Allan in charge of 300 enlisted men and any Indians he recruited on his payroll. Colonel John Allan's 1777 Machias payroll listed 43 Indians from Passamaquoddy, Penobscot, Micmac, and Maliseet tribes. Allan, along with Reverend James Lyon, still believed that Nova Scotia could be captured and that many who lived there supported the American Revolution. They wrote more letters to George Washington, and he felt it was not yet time for an attack on Nova Scotia. John Allan had become great friends with the local Indian tribes. The Passamaquoddy, Micmac, Penobscot, and Maliseets had all formed the Wabanaki Confederacy and pledged to fight alongside the Americans.